Welcome to Courage Cocktail. I'm your host, Lee Anne McClymont. Glad you could join us today. Yes, we are back live in the studios of WCOM FM in Carver, North Carolina. It's great to be back. Today we host the producer and a filmmaker of a documentary called Pioneers in Skirts. So let's start. We're going to run a little clip here. The director is Ashley Maria. The producer is Lee Ann Burst. You're going to hear the backstory of some wonderful, wonderful voices. I can think of no better way to punctuate her work and to introduce you to her findings than through this audio trailer. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Ashley. Oh no. Yeah, that's me. Interview 2, take 2. When I started working in the film industry, I noticed just how hard it is for women to get ahead. So I talked to other women my age to see if they were having the same experience, and it turns out they were.
If someone were to ask me, do you see yourself as equal? My instant response would be yes. But if they said, do you think others see it the same way? I'd probably have to say no.
I knew it was time to ask, what does it take for women to succeed in the workplace?
Previous generations of women have, fought and won many battles.
It's extremely important for young women now, whether you're an athlete or in business or whatever, to know about the people who are responsible for the opportunities and privileges that you have.
The men did not believe we could do the work, and we showed them we could rivet.
Yes.
And we were so proud of that.
These women inspired me to find the answers.
There are Capitol Hill offices that don't want to meet with us because we have women in the name of our museum.
You feel too young,
Yeah.
you feel too blonde, you feel too pretty, right? So at one point I was young, so I totally get it, right?
You expect in your mind to be able to do a job and just be you, and then you are confronted with the reality that other people don't view it that way.
I also learned early in the career that I couldn't act the same way that a man could. And so if you went into a meeting and if I was emphatic and I put my hand on the table and said, at first somebody said, you need to go to the ladies' room and compose yourself.
Today we're still refuting mythologies about women. Myths that women can't do certain kinds of jobs, myths that women don't need a full salary.
Sometimes girls, even though they're very smart, they're technically oriented, they don't always jump up and do things. Knowledge is not the thing. I think really it's about confidence and enthusiasm for themselves to just jump in there and do that.
So I think sports and arts and team activities in general are critical to young women developing the confidence that they need early so they can be the leaders that they need to be later on down the road.
Some of the things that have to go right include parents that recognize the growth mindset, teachers that really nurture your self-esteem. You need a mentor in your life. You need people who can really give you an idea of what these fields are like that I think are really foreign places for a lot of us.
So rather than just say, what are things women can do, I want to think about what individuals need to do, what institutions need to do, what employers need to do, and what governments need to do.
I'm struggling with people who aren't thinking that way yet.
Totally.
And I do know by telling them my goals with this film, I have changed a few minds.
Mm-hmm. The reason I was comfortable and excited about doing Pioneers in Skirts is your mission and your purpose of this project is very much aligned with what I believe in. So, I can't imagine not helping, and I can't imagine why anyone else who you reach out to wouldn't want to be even a small part of sharing their perspectives and their lessons.
What advice do you have in my journey here?
I'm going to quote Eleanor Roosevelt. Never, 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 never give up.
All right, see ya. I'm getting All right. Be a pioneer. Follow our journey as we make pioneers in skirts.
Take 7. Love that.
That was good. That's good.
I made a good click.
Welcome back. I hope listeners could get a flavor of the more voices, the historic voices that were quoted. And I want to welcome you both to the studio. Sitting directly to my right is Lee Ann Burst, the producer of the film, and also her daughter, Ashley Maria. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
So let's talk about this. Ashley, maybe you can lead us off. Why this movie and why now?
The film is answering the question, what does it take for women to succeed in the workplace? Because we saw that women today were not advancing in their careers as fast as they should be. So we said, okay, let's put an end to this. Let's do a how-to movie with actual women's experience and talking about the barriers that women must overcome, which confidence is one of them, and that's what I talked about. That was an issue I had to overcome. And then just issues in the workplace. And we talk to topic experts who explored the reasons in a more tangible, technical way, so that we can look at this question: what does it take for women to succeed in the workplace, logically find these answers? Because I know when I watch movies and I want Pioneers in Skirts, as a director, I want Pioneers in Skirts to be a fun film, because I know movies like this tend to talk at people. And I want this movie to talk with people, because, I remember in college just watching all these movies saying what I need to be doing. Okay, but how? What, everyone loves to tell women what they should be doing, and we're going to tell them, okay, this is how you do it.
When someone hears Pioneers in Skirts, they're thinking it's a historical-only film, and it's actually not. What this film is about what it takes for today's women and tomorrow's women to succeed in the workplace. How does she achieve what she wants to achieve? How does she know what it is that she wants to achieve?
That's amazing. So it's really, what's the next step?
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. When is this premiering? What's the deal here? Do we have a timeline?
Our goal is to get it out in 2015, so about a year and a half from now, a year. But it's an ongoing process. Making a documentary can take years, and as you've seen, it's been 3 years, 2 years. Hello.
Well, yeah,
2 to 3 years.
The idea probably had to distill a year
yeah,
before.
but it takes a process, because this is our passion project. This isn't our full-time job. And I work full-time, my mom works full-time, plus we are taking time to go to these events like the White House Summit we're going to talk about in a minute. And so we do this project because we know it's right and it needs to get done, and we're doing it, Saturday morning, 8 a.m., wake up, let's get ready for a shoot today, and stuff like that.
I listened to that tape several times, that little clip, and, theoretically, we're supposed to, the arc of our narratives is supposed to condense. So I listened to it, and by the third time through, I said, I can't cut any voices.
Yeah.
I just felt disrespectful. And so what I chose to do is include the whole thing and then think about the most important thing that I heard, and that was the older voice coming from a woman who said, and we showed them we could rivet.
Yeah. Well, first of all, in case the listeners didn't catch it, those were real life Rosie the Riveters. They're 89, 90, and 91. And we interviewed them, and yeah, they were so proud. They were the first women to prove to employers that women could work. And so we honor them by saying, you know what, they were the ones that started this. And that's why they were important to put in film. And also because they are the coolest, and I had the "We Can Do It" sign in my room in college and, in high school, and I studied them in college and really understood what their journey was like. They weren't just riveters. I mean, they were women who had a life and even met their husbands during the war. And I asked them, I said, how did you find the time to date? Because you were so busy, right? Like we are today. And they said, well, you got to make time to eat. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I guess that makes sense. I was like, all right, I guess if the Rosies can make time for their life, I can too.
So why did we interview them? Again, Ashley just said, they paved the way. They showed that women can work. Well, women were working before that, right? They were working before that. But they were stereotypes, and employers hired women for certain types of jobs. Well, when the war broke out and we needed more people to help us work in the war plants, these women were asked, and there was actually a national campaign asking them to go to work. It first started off with, we need women without children, and then they transitioned to, well, okay, here's the guidelines if you do have children. We need a lot of women. Mm-hmm. These women were true pioneers. They got on trains, they got on buses, they traveled to cities they've never been to, not knowing what they were going to do. They show up at the plant. They say, I'm ready to work. Their only goal was to end the war.
Yes.
That was their only goal. Their goal wasn't to work. Their goal wasn't to make money. And their goal really wasn't to make change for women in the workplace.
They wanted to bring the boys back. And they kept telling us that.
Yep.
But the movie doesn't stop there.
I know. And scene.
All right, and a scene. Okay, but what happened next, Ashley?
Well, the purpose for Pioneers in Skirts is to answer the question, what does it take for women to succeed in the workplace? And part of that answer is to understand the barriers that women overcame before you. And so that's why we brought in the Rosie the Riveters. Also, it was just really cool, but we brought them in. So by understanding the barriers that women came before you, you understand what you're dealing with today. And you're also not reinventing the wheel. You are taking on their challenges and their lessons and moving forward. And that's something that we're realizing not a lot of women today are understanding what came before them. And so we're trying to not only give them a little bit of their history, but telling them this is the how-to, these are the barriers, and this is how successful women have overcome them. And you know what, take your lessons and move forward from there.
Well, I'm going to have to just kind of focus our lens a wee bit.
Sure.
When you think about these barriers, they're barriers that are from the outside, but then there are internal barriers, which I imagine may have really surprisingly emerged over time. The movie that you're building, are you talking about both those kinds of barriers?
Well, the movie, it started with my own barrier, if you will. I graduated from film school, and just being overwhelmed by my career options, I lost confidence in myself. I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, but I wasn't really sure what to do. I felt alone. And then as I talked to my colleagues, a lot of them felt that same way, and it wasn't just women in the film industry, it was kind of everywhere. And so I realized what I'm feeling right now is something that should not be allowed anymore. And that's why we started talking about it. My mom and I, Lee Anne she's right here. We were making a documentary about a women's organization that's local to North Carolina, and we realized, you know what, there's a bigger story here, and so that's when Pioneers in Skirts was born, if you will.
You say that, and you say that with the succinct grace of practice and knowing this. You've been making this movie since 2012, or has it been longer? I think it was 2012.
Yeah.
And listeners, to thoroughly confuse you, there are two Lee Annes in the room, which is great. But the other point I wanted to showcase is, Ashley Maria, before you went on to become a MFA graduate of film school, you were an undergraduate at, from what I understand, a pretty well-known school.
I am a Tar Heel at heart.
UNC School of Communications, JCOM?
Yeah, I was in both the journalism school and the communication school.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted everyone to understand that is that storytelling in an undergraduate setting and journalism and all this stuff really led you to this film world. And it's the film is becoming those skills, the storytelling skills. What I value most about this particular episode of Courage Cocktail is the prominence that you placed upon history. You're viewing what's going on now through the lens of what has happened before you undertake the job of figuring out how to make it better. And so many of us, so few of us have the opportunity to see these things and to have that perspective. And to find that perspective in a young voice, it's just, it's tingling. It's delightful. So we now know, okay, what's going on. Now, how do our listeners tune in while we're talking? If you happen to be on a computer screen, leave your media playing on, or your media player on.
Keep listening.
And keep listening. But why don't you peruse through a wonderful website? And I'm going to ask you both, or ask you, Ashley, to shout it out.
Sure. www.pioneersinskirts.com.
And that's spelled out in all one big fat word.
Yes.
Pioneersinskirts.com. And you're going to find what's there. What's going to be waiting for us?
Well, you'll see our teaser with all the actual footage.
Cool.
So you'll be able to see the people we are talking to. You'll see our mission statement, which is a little bit more about my story and my mom's story, about why we decided to make the movie. And then you'll also see the beautiful Support Us page that we're talking to people about, this movie is all of our movie. And, how do you want this movie to happen? We'll be a part of it and support us. We're in the process of getting fiscal sponsorship. That should happen in the next week or two.
Hey, congratulations.
It was an effort, yeah.
Yes.
Having the teaser out there has definitely put us into another level of the playing field. And a lot of people have said, okay, you know what, I do believe in this project and I do want to help. And so just the last 2 weeks have been so exciting for us. And overwhelming. Very overwhelming, and it's good. It's only all goodness. But once we had the video available, and again, you would go to www.pioneersinskirts.com to watch that teaser. You heard it, but you'll be able to see who these people are, who the players are that we've spoken to so far. We couldn't put them all in there, but we have a long way to go, and it's set the tone and let people better understand what we're trying to do. And so what's been happening with us is we've been approaching people, those that we were able to spend a little bit of time with, explain what we're trying to do. They grant us the interviews. Now that the teaser came out, now that we've been exposed at a national level, and I know you want to talk about that later, but we are now overwhelmed with a lot of people now understanding it's a head nod, they got it, they want to be a part of it, they want to be in the film, which is overwhelming. So we're trying to be smart about it.
Sure.
Yeah, we've been asked to, be involved in a lot of things. We're so appreciative of you inviting us here.
Thank you.
Lee Anne's one of our supporters before we had the teaser.
I know a good thing when I see it, ladies. I can't say.
We love Lee Anne. So the whole, but at this point, we're, we have a story arc that we're working towards, and the history of working women is a part of that story arc. We want to introduce to people what it takes to find your voice as a female. And we've been doing a lot of that already. We've been talking to women of all ages. We have a strong focus on women who are in their 20s, early 30s, and a very strong focus on the generation of 18 and younger.
Really?
Right.
I didn't pick that up. That message just left me. So you're saying you're reaching out to the girls. I don't know if they'd be classified as millennials, maybe. I'm not sure. But 18 and younger. Right?
Yeah, we call them Generation Z.
Okay.
What's happening is there's that generation of young women, the millennial, everybody's talking about the millennial, whatever stereotypes you want to give the millennial. Ashley's a millennial, right?
Yeah.
Okay, give our listeners a real hard, bounce that off. Is it year 2000? Is it between 95 and 2000? When do you have to be born to be a millennial?
I can't even. If you Google it, you'll get different years.
Yeah. Okay.
But we scope it in her early 20s and early 30s.
Okay.
That's where we keep our focus.
Okey-doke.
And that's a young lady and a young man who has a different perspective on the workplace. No, hugely different. For example, all of us need flex time. I want flex time. Lee Anne, you want flex time. But the millennial is a bit different. The millennial wants that flex time. They want it to look a little bit different than what we have, and they're willing to show that they mean it by walking off the job. I have never, no matter what age I was willing to walk off the job if you didn't give me what I wanted. But the millennial is.
And the other thing that's to me, so provocative is the role men play in the story. We constantly, I'm pro-women. I've been at women's colleges, graduate school, women's global business school. Mm-hmm. But I think about it, and I think men play such an extremely valuable role. There are brothers, there are husbands, there are sons, and there are fathers. And understanding their intersection of their vested interest in seeing women's roles being all that they can be and summoned to be, I think that's extremely important for the next wave of what's going to happen next.
Yeah, a lot of the women we've interviewed, we talk about the work-life balance because that's a huge issue.
Is there such a thing? I don't know.
I don't know yet. But they say the biggest thing that helped them have that balance was a partner, so a husband who hello.
I'm pointing to Bill right now,
There
who's
you
doing
go.
our soundboard.
who's your teammate, who
Yes.
doesn't expect you to do everything in the household and have a career. And we're meeting the women who didn't have a good teammate, and we're talking about what they had to deal with. And then we're also meeting women who were single parents and how they were able to do both. And I don't want to even go down that path, but it's like it's very, very difficult. And the only thing I can really relate to it, because I'm not a parent, is just, you know what, I'll be an ear to listen. You know, I can only provide that right now. But that's why my mom, she's dealt with all of that. And it's good to have us both on this film because she sees it from a different perspective than I do.
Now, that brings us to that important honesty, which is you're a mother-daughter team. And the questions that I have is it good? Is it great? Or are you speechless? How does that work, Lee Anne?
Mom, would you like to talk first, or would you like me to talk?
So bossy
I'm
mom.
very respectful.
Well, you know, a lot of people ask us that question, and we have learned very quickly to respect each other. And when we're on set, she owns the set. She's an expert. She's really, really good at what she does.
I've seen her work, listeners. She's an expert. You've
Yes.
done beautiful work.
So I step back. She tells me what it's like to be a producer because I don't do that for a living. And now she says, Mom, you've done so much of it, you need to call yourself a producer. But this is her world. That's her world. I do a lot of the producing part where I do the research, I talk to people, I figure out also the marketing part of that, of what we're trying to do, the messages. I work on the story arc and then sync up with Ashley, who's the storyteller. So when we're on set, she owns the set. When we're on conference calls, because of the experience that I've had, I own the calls and the next steps and the action items and the follow through and the professionalism. We work pretty well, and you know, I respect her tremendously.
This is really nice to hear. This is good.
I know, but it's spoken with a truthful heart. You know, I can't help but think about the value that your mom's perspective would have as a working woman. It's different than my perspective. You were a single mom, I think, and a successful one at that. And when you think about these lives, and then moving, and how can we shape things? How can we shape the definition of success? Should our ambition change? Should those arcs change in the context of what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a gifted genius? How do these things all play out? I value what you've said, but I'm curious, Ashley, when you look at your mom's life and you look at your own life, you notice what's the same. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what's different?
Well, I know that I was able to jump into this project knowing I had somebody who would catch me if I fell. So I've told her that. She knows that I know I could not be in the film industry if I didn't have this kind of support, because it is scary. It is very, very hard to be successful in this industry. So that being said, as far as the movie is concerned, I think I'm teaching her how to run camera, because I'm supposed to be on camera for some of the movie you'll see in the teaser. But it's just me with the camera, and so I have to say, okay, Mom, this is how you focus, this is how we zoom in and zoom out, and then it makes me laugh, because then she says, I didn't study 3 years for this, like I didn't do this, and I'm like, no, but you're doing so well.
You're natural, Anne.
It's pretty good, and then that kind of stuff we'll probably use, because it is a story about a mother-daughter team making this movie. It's two different generations trying to answer the same question.
So listeners, please stay with us. We are at that wonderful part of the show where I'm going to encourage each and every one of you to go out and get a cold, long glass of sweet tea. Stretch your legs, leave your radio on while we play some great music. And when you return, we're going to learn a little bit more about something where the ladies were last week. Stay tuned. Today we're featuring in our studio two spectacular guests, a mother and daughter team from the documentary film Pioneers in Skirts. That is, the film's director is Ashley Maria, and the film's producer is Leanne Burst. Well, ladies, I want to thank you back. You didn't run away out of the studio. So how can we help you?
I need many hugs.
Aw, Ashley. All right, I'm hugging.
All right, good. But we need sponsorship. We need people to join us in the journey in making this movie get out there into the world. We need corporations that have the same goals to be a part of us. We need women's groups to sponsor us, and we're offering we're offering screenings that women's groups can start a discussion within their women's group by watching our footage of what we've gotten so far. And so we're looking for sponsorship that way. And then we're also looking for individuals to I mean, I don't want to say to donate, but we are. And to just offer their services, you know, even just getting food on a shoot. Can cost a lot of money, and so if there's a company that wants to support us that way,
right, and that's more of another type of sponsorship that we're looking for. So we put that all on the website under the support area, what we're looking for, even these focus groups that we're talking about. In exchange for a sponsorship, we'd like to go to a corporate women's group and or an association women's organization, whatever it is, where they're trying to have a panel of speakers, a very good debate, a very important discussion. We even talk about on our website what the topics are that we'd like to focus on, because it's core to our story.
Absolutely.
And it goes back to that comment you made about men.
Yes.
You talked about, men at home, men at work. We're getting ready to fly out to Seattle and interview a CEO who very fondly talks about one of her board of directors who has been coaching her on what it takes to get men to do things.
Ooh,
that's a whole other movie.
I want that on the screen immediately.
Well, and it's also, he's very supportive in
That's
her
great.
career, and so it's very important for us to see what a male's perspective as to what it takes for women to succeed.
Absolutely. All right. Now, we have to. We want our listeners to go out to the website, pioneersinskirts.com. But you have to tell me, ladies, what were you doing in Washington, D.C.?
Who wants to talk first? So we went to a White House summit on working families in Washington, D.C. Last week. We were invited, the movie was invited to talk about what we've discovered as we made the film, and then also to learn more for the film. Because the solutions and the issues that they were bringing up at this summit is very important to our audience for this film.
And I'm going to annotate this
Sure.
because I know you're taking this from the perspective of the filmmaker, but the listeners may need to know, gee whiz, what on earth is the first ever White House Summit on Working Families? The main focus is working women and the strategies needed to ensure all members of our society have equal access to high-quality jobs. Of particular significance was the focus on increasingly important role of women as breadwinners in working families. So it was sounded like this is a threshold point where they're acknowledging it, and endorsement isn't quite the right word, but to put the imprimatur of the White House on the value of working women and how it affects families. I find it hard to believe it was the first one ever.
We did too, actually. We were very happy about it.
Yes.
We, when we got there, we did a lot of research. They prepared us very well prior to that. We actually were on phone calls where they were trying to demonstrate. They were trying to walk the walk. So their message as a group, and so it was hosted by the White House Council of Women and Girls, the Department of Labor, and the Center of American Progress. And the three of them got together and said, let's bring a bunch of people in the room. And it was actually a very large room, and 12 to 1,500 people.
That's a lot of people.
A lot of people. And they said, let's see if we can talk about in one day, and the day was extremely long, but in one day, how everyone deserves a fair shake in our workplace here in America. What does it do to us when they don't? And what do companies need to be doing to help give employees a fair shake? And so we sat in a room full of labor unions, advocacy groups, head of corporations everywhere. The movers and shakers we all read about in the papers were getting up and talking and sitting in the audience with us. We were in awe over the power and the messaging, but we had a purpose. So when we went there, we needed to keep our focus on the film.
Yes.
And we needed to share what we've learned and meet people who are interested in our story and to support our story and to provide information that supports our story.
Right. In journalism, we'd call it stringers, people who kind of help you along building your story, getting leads. But I had this question come to mind. I don't know of any other film that's assaulting this topic such as this. I think you ladies are out there.
We do too, actually. I think that's why we were invited to this event. And, we are looking at, we're trying to see who's cracked the code. And
that's why I use the word assaulting it. It's like, it's not unpacking it. This is truly something that needs to be somehow or other broken down into reasonable components with clarity of vision. And you get that through history. Mm-hmm. So this whole process, well, what else have you learned on that? Was it a one day in D.C.?
It was a one day. We had some major presentations and panels on a big forum, and then we would break out and go to smaller different forums, different sessions. The one thing we did learn at the base forum, other than how there are so many people who want to see women succeed in the workplace, but in their perspective, it was families, right? But in our perspective, we wanted to stay focused on women. We first started seeing that there are corporations that are trying to make a change, and which ones are the powerhouses behind this change, and to support working women. So we started seeing who they were, talking to those who actually developed their own studies, and they talked about their studies and the results of the studies. They talked about what other people need to be doing to encourage their own employers to make change in the workplace. But again, still not part of our story, right?
That's right. But there's something about framing in context. And to me, learning from these observations, the first thing that came to mind was it's got some traction because you've got such a variety of very influential thinkers and doers there at this event. But there was one picture there that I saw you post, which was a former Smithy. Tell us about that.
Well, I believe you're speaking of Gloria Steinem.
Yes.
She was there talking on a panel, which for me was one of my more favorite panels of the day, with Nancy Pelosi, and we have a list of everybody that was on that panel. But
why did it move you so? You've become very, very reflective now.
It talked about the issues that we're talking about in the movie. I said, okay, this is why I'm here. When I was sitting on that panel, it was all these successful women basically saying, listen, we're not just role models. Like, we had to go through some hard experiences to get here. One woman said,
it's not perfect. I got divorced. I couldn't have as many kids as I wanted. And I'm like, okay, you know what? That's what we need to hear. We don't need to hear, oh, when opportunity comes knocking, you better knock back, or however it goes. But, you know, you need to hear those tough stories, because women need to realize they're not alone in their efforts to succeed in their career and in their life. And so that's what they were talking about. And I was like, okay, good. This is what I want to hear.
Well, that's exactly the point I want to bring you into, Lee Anne. You explained to me something about you approached the microphone and you asked the audience for dialogue. What happened next?
Well, you know, we were actually allowed to go into a very special session where most of the audience was not allowed to be in. And so it was a very small room, but incredible people up at the podium and sitting in the audience. The room was also very full of the young women that are getting ready to graduate from university. And all these women held their own forums and stood up and spoke about, you know, this is what we see our challenges, and this is exactly what Ashley and I need to hear. So one young lady got up and said, well, in our state, we see that we all agree that we don't think by going to university, we're not going to ever make it to middle class. And then another young lady says, well, we're from Iowa, and we don't see any role models that are women in our state, and let me tell you why. Mm-hmm. So we're glued. Mm-hmm. And then one of the leaders got up and said, well, this is what you need to do. And this is what Ashley just referred to, and what we're constantly hearing when you see a panel, when you hear women being interviewed. They say wonderful things. They say, I actually took some notes, so I have them right in front of me. But, you know, one woman was saying, you know what, men have networks of their own, so you need to build those yourself, and you better watch out, because you can get pushed back of the room, and then before you know it, you're going to be all the way in the back of the room, and you have to figure out how to get your way back up at work. And, you know, these young women, I was looking at their faces, and another person said, you know, I worry about getting in that room and then how I'm going to bring other women with me in the room. And she's referring to moving up in the corporate or moving up in the organization. But I figured it out, and then she left it at that. So I got up to the mic. And I'm not used to doing this again, you know.
You're doing fine now, Lee Anne.
This movie has empowered her. It has. That's that surprise that you asked me about. Mm-hmm. So I go up to the microphone, and I'm like, but you're not telling these young ladies in the room what they need to hear. You're scaring them. Mm-hmm. You're giving them tips, but no substance behind those tips. So I said, you know, this question is for you. You're saying that you bring other women along. Well, what are those attributes that you're looking for in these young ladies to bring them along? Mm-hmm. Well, the entire room erupted.
In laughter and in relief, in applause?
They're like, oh, that was a good question. Oh, yeah,
that's what we need to hear, yeah.
And so it told us that we are on the right track with this film. The woman answered. She did not give a very good answer. We caught her off guard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, but what good that happened out of it is one of the women on the panel, the CEO that I spoke about a minute ago. Mm-hmm. We walked up to her at the end of the event, and that was the other goodness about this event, is that you can walk up to anybody. There was Secret Service everywhere, so mm-hmm. everybody was safe, and we could approach anybody. So we walked up to her and we said, "Listen, we really enjoyed what you said, the advice that you gave. You were more of a how-to advice provider. You know, what would you have said if I would have asked you that question?" And then she started rattling off the answer. And I said, okay, stop talking. We need to get this on film. Don't tell me now.
Hold that thought.
But there are women out there who know the answers.
Yes.
There are a lot of women who don't, and a lot of women who need to hear it. And so that was hugely beneficial for us to be there, to capture that, to understand the issues that are out there. We did not realize that a lot of young women graduating from school now feel like that not only will they never make it to middle class America, they feel that only women with capital will make it in their careers. So there was another discussion about paid internships as a result. You know, a lot of companies don't want to pay their interns, and Ashley, you know, worked both types in her career. But as a result, they pop out of university with a wonderful degree, maybe with some experience, but with debt that's unbelievable.
So what you're really describing is that I can't help but say I wonder if their male colleagues at colleges may be feeling similarly. I'm not sure that that's a uniquely woman's perspective, but I can tell you this, that the moment you start adding family life and wanting to become a mother in all of this soup, boy, that cocktail changes. And so I'm listening, and in so many ways, I feel like our interview was a big, fat, juicy teaser because we spoke about, okay, this is the movie, this is what's going on, these women need to hear this. But were there any one thing when you say these women need to hear this? Is it about confidence? Is it about confidence?
I think it is. I know what struck me. I was talking to Kat Cole, the president of Cinnabon, and I was talking to her about a situation. I was given an opportunity in my master's program to be a leader, and I jumped right in. I said, yes, this is what I want to do. But a lot of people we're not ready for someone like me. And I told her this story, and she said, you know, it's because you expect to go in and just be you, and other people don't see it that way. And I just looked at her and I'm
like,
they don't
see it that way.
Yeah, for me, they didn't trust me yet. And I think a lot of women need to realize that a lot of people, they have all these preconceived notions, and you just need to keep being you and keep trying. And we let our confidence tell us we're not doing something right when we're okay, and it's the outside sources that are building up against us.
But very quickly, we're learning a lot of these things. It's not just one thing, right? We're learning that today's woman, this younger generation, they don't support each other as well as the older generation did. So we're going to be talking about that in the film. We talk about perceptions of women of today versus the way that they were of yesterday. And a lot of women of today are shocked to realize that there are perceptions of them that they didn't expect. We're talking about negotiations, learning how to negotiate your own salary, and so on. And board of directors, we're hitting hard on what it takes to be a part of a board of directors and why are women not here in America. So we have a road to travel.
And I think that you're really well focused, and it's just been delightful. I could spend another 3 hours speaking about this. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives to have the interest and make the investment in the future by presenting ways of moving forward, not just guessing either. The website to learn more about this remarkable piece of work is called Pioneers in Skirts, that's plural.com, the one big fat word. Listeners, I've been trailing this story for 2 years. It's paying off. I've learned so much just by listening to this mother-daughter team. And most importantly, just listening to, well, we still don't know that, but we're going to find out. So I thank you both.
Thank you.
And listeners, time is of the essence here. Summer continues. We're going to continue to gather fresh ingredients for your courage cocktails. Next week, we head north, and I will be on assignment. I also want to thank everyone who's helped produce the Courage Cocktail radio show. That includes the WCOM station. And I want to thank you, the listener. You've kept me close by. You've sent me emails and texts. You've also sent me some social media, which has really inspired me. Thank you all. You remember, you bring the lunch and I'll bring the courage cocktail. Thank you.